The morning sun stretched across Willow Creek, a quiet mixed suburban community on the edge of Charlotte. It was the kind of place where lawns stayed trimmed, dogs barked at the mailman, and neighbors waved whether they liked you or not. Life moved slow here, almost sleepy, and for most families, it felt safe. But for some, especially those who felt watched a little too closely, safety always came with a small knot in the stomach. 13-year-old twins, Mason and Micah Carter, were biking up and down the cul-de-sac the way they did every Saturday. Their mother, Serena, had left early for her shift at the hospital, kissing their foreheads as she whispered the same words she always did before work. "Take care of each other. You are each other's keeper." Those words were their anchor. After their father died during a deployment overseas 3 years earlier, Serena had held the boys together with nothing but strength, sleepless nights, and a heart big enough to swallow her grief. Mason, the older twin by 7 minutes, always carried himself with quiet responsibility. He noticed things a little more, thought a little faster, and tried a little harder. Micah was the lighter spirit, the kind of kid who found wonders in simple places. He could make a game out of anything. But together, they were inseparable, two halves of the same heartbeat. That morning they laughed as they raced their bikes around the cul-de-sac. But nearby, from behind her white PVC fence, their neighbor, Mrs. Whitfield, watched with narrowed eyes. She was known around the block for her perfect garden, her perfect porch, and her perfect opinions about who belonged where. Every time Serena worked a double shift and the boys played outside longer than she liked, Mrs. Whitfield would peer through her curtains as if she were guarding a fortress. "Suspicious," she muttered to herself as she stepped onto her porch. Always wandering. Always touching other people's things. But they weren't. They were just kids being kids. Around noon, Micah's bike chain slipped off as they turned into the drive. Micah got off and crouched near the edge of Mrs. Whitfield's yard. The chain had popped near her trimmed hedges. Mason set his bike down, kneeling next to his twin to help. Inside her kitchen, Mrs. Whitfield peered out the window. Her fingers twitched anxiously. She saw 2 black boys crouching near her bushes, their hands moving quickly. To her, it didn't look like fixing a bike chain. It looked like trouble. She whispered to herself, "Not today. Not in my yard." Fear mixed with something she often confused for concern. Within seconds, she grabbed her phone. The boys didn't hear her frantic voice as she called 911. "There are 2 boys. I think they're trying to break into something. They're on my property. Please send someone quickly. I'm alone, and I'm scared." She didn't mention they were 13-year-old neighbors. She didn't mention they had lived here all their lives. She didn't mention that the suspicious activity was a slipped bike chain. When the patrol car rolled around the corner minutes later, its lights were off, but the presence was enough to make Mason's stomach drop. He had seen this before on the news. He had heard the stories whispered by his cousins when they thought he wasn't listening. His mom always told him, "If you ever talk to police, be respectful, stay calm, and keep your hands visible. Come home safe. Please just come home safe." But he never thought he would need that lesson in their quiet neighborhood. Officer Grant stepped out, one hand resting on his belt. "Hey there," he said, his tone neutral. "Afternoon, boys. Mind telling me what you're doing?" Micah stood up quickly, brushing dirt off his hands. "My bike chain fell off. We live right here. That's our house." He pointed to their front door. Mason lifted his hands slightly, trying to mirror what he had seen his mother do once when she got pulled over for a broken taillight. "We're not doing anything wrong, sir. Just fixing the bike." The officer nodded but didn't move his hand from his belt. His eyes flicked to the bushes, then to the house. "Your neighbor called. Said she felt unsafe." Micah looked confused. "Unsafe from us?" Before the officer could respond, Mrs. Whitfield stepped out of her front door, arms folded tight. "Yes, unsafe. They were messing around near my property, hiding behind my hedge. I've had things go missing before, you know." "You mean the package that blew into your yard during a storm?" Micah muttered under his breath. Mason nudged him gently. This wasn't the time. Officer Grant sighed. Ma'am, they're kids. And they live here. Everything seems fine. Mrs. Whitfield huffed. Well, I wasn't sure. You can't be too careful these days. Something in her tone, her fear mixed with judgment, made Mason's chest burn. He felt small in a way he didn't have words for, as if his existence itself was suspicious. The officer eventually left after confirming everything was fine, but the damage was done. When he was gone, Mrs. Whitfield shook her head. Next time, boys, stay in your own space. It's not that hard. She returned to her porch as if she had done something heroic. Micah's eyes glistened. Why does she act like we're dangerous? Mason swallowed. I don't know. But he did know. He felt it in his bones. He felt it every time someone looked at him too long at a store, every time someone tensed when he walked past. Their mother came home late that evening, exhausted from a full shift in the ER. The boys didn't want to stress her, but she could always read their faces like a book. Baby, why do you look like someone took your sunshine? She asked gently. They told her everything. Serena exhaled slowly. For a moment she closed her eyes, fighting the mixture of sadness, anger, and fear that only a black mother in America truly understood. She cupped their faces. I'm so sorry you had to feel that. You didn't deserve it. None of it. Micah leaned into her. Why does she hate us? She doesn't hate you, Serena said softly. She fears what she doesn't understand. And that fear makes her see danger where there is none. But listen to me, you cannot let someone else's fear decide who you are. That night she tucked them in with extra care. She hummed the lullaby their father used to sing, a tune he learned during nights under desert skies overseas. It had always calmed them. It calmed her too, though her heart ached at the memory of him. But what the boys didn't know, what Serena hadn't told them yet, was that tomorrow would change everything. Tomorrow she would be on the evening news. Tomorrow the whole town, including Mrs. Whitfield, would see a story that would flip everything upside down. Because tomorrow night, every TV screen in Charlotte would show her being honored for something she had done without expecting recognition. Something brave. Something selfless. Something that would make the same neighbor who called cops on her children question every assumption she ever made. But this was only the beginning. The heartbreak was still coming. The healing was still miles away. And the town of Willow Creek had no idea how much they would all be forced to learn about judgment, grief, and the power of seeing someone's heart before seeing their skin. By the next morning, the tension from yesterday still sat heavy in the air. Mason woke up earlier than usual, staring at the ceiling as a quiet ache pressed down on his chest. 13-year-old kids weren't supposed to carry this kind of weight. He wished he could shake it off the way he used to shake off scraped knees or bad grades, but this feeling lingered, sticking to him like a shadow. Micah, normally full of energy in the mornings, moved slower too. He didn't ask to ride bikes today. He didn't even ask for cereal. He just sat at the kitchen counter, tracing circles on the wooden surface with his fingertip. Serena watched both boys as she packed her lunch for another long shift. She could see the heaviness in their eyes, and it broke her more than she wanted to admit. She wished she could take away every bruise the world left on them, but she knew she couldn't. All she could do was teach them how to rise anyway. She placed a hand on each of their shoulders. I know yesterday was rough, she said gently, but don't let it steal your joy. You hear me? People may look at you and make up stories in their heads. But you always know the truth of who you are. And you walk in that truth, even when others don't see it. Micah leaned his head against her side. I wish people saw us the way you do. One day, she whispered. Or maybe even tonight. Mason looked up. What do you mean? Serena smiled softly but didn't explain. You'll see. Just promise me you'll take care of each other today. They nodded. She kissed their foreheads, grabbed her keys, and headed out. The boys tried to make the best of the morning. They watched cartoons, tried a board game, then sat outside on their porch, watching other kids play in the street. But somehow they felt separated from the world, like they were behind invisible glass. Across the street, Mrs. Whitfield was watering her garden. She caught sight of the twins and gave a tight, polite smile, the kind that wasn't quite genuine. Mason forced himself to return a nod. Micah didn't look at her at all. Mrs. Whitfield cleared her throat. "Boys, I hope there are no hard feelings about yesterday." Her voice had that tone people used when they wanted to be forgiven without admitting they were wrong. "We weren't doing anything wrong," Mason answered quietly. She hesitated, her eyes darting toward their yard, then back to them. "Well, it just looked suspicious from where I was standing. I have to protect my home." Micah mumbled. "You could have asked us." She stiffened. "I didn't know if you would tell the truth." Mason's stomach twisted. He wanted to defend himself, but all the words felt tangled inside him. Mrs. Whitfield nodded curtly and went back to watering her roses, never realizing how deeply her words cut. For her, it was just a conversation. For the boys, it felt like being pushed into a corner they didn't create. Around noon, Serena's car pulled into the driveway, unexpectedly early. The boys hurried outside, surprised. She stepped out wearing her scrubs, tired but smiling with a kind of quiet pride that made her eyes shine. "You're home early," Micah said. "Only for a few minutes," she replied, kneeling to their level. "I have a big award ceremony tonight. They're airing it on the local news. I need to grab a nicer pair of shoes and head right back." "What kind of award?" Mason asked. Serena brushed a stray curl behind her ear. "They're recognizing some of the hospital workers who went above and beyond during last winter's wildfire. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time." The boys had heard pieces of the story, but Serena rarely talked about it. She had volunteered for disaster relief when the fires destroyed thousands of acres across North Carolina. She spent sleepless nights comforting burn victims, organizing evacuations, even rescuing an elderly couple trapped in their home before the flames reached them. She never accepted praise for it. To her, it was just doing what her heart told her to do. "Will you be on TV?" Micah asked, eyes wide. "Maybe for a moment," she laughed. "But the ceremony is about the whole team, not just me." Before they could ask more, her radio buzzed. "I gotta go," she said. "I'll be back before the ceremony." She squeezed them tight. "I love you both. Be good." They watched her drive away, their hearts lifting with pride. Maybe tonight the world would finally see the woman they already knew was extraordinary. The afternoon passed slowly. The twins sat on the porch again, and for the first time all day, they felt a little lightness return. Mason thought about the ceremony. Micah wondered what their mom would say on camera. Neither noticed Mrs. Whitfield watching them again from across the street, her expression softer now, like she knew she had made a mistake but didn't yet know how to fix it. As the sun dipped lower, the boys went inside to get ready. Their mother returned just after 6, changed into a simple deep blue dress she hardly ever wore. The shade made her look radiant. Her hair fell gently around her face, and for a moment the boys froze. She looked like the strongest woman in the world. Because she was. "You look beautiful," Mason said. Serena smiled warmly. "Thank you, sweetheart." The ceremony aired at 7 p.m. The boys settled onto the couch with popcorn. Serena sat between them, unsure if she deserved any attention but grateful to share this small moment with her sons. The news anchor's voice echoed from the TV. "Tonight, we honor the heroes of last year's wildfire tragedy." A video montage played: burnt forests, injured civilians, overwhelmed emergency rooms. Then the anchor's tone shifted. One local nurse showed extraordinary bravery. Her quick action saved multiple families during the evacuation. "Please join us in recognizing Nurse Serena Carter." The screen filled with footage of Serena standing on stage, accepting a medal. The crowd applauded. Her soft voice came through the speakers as she spoke into the microphone. "I didn't do anything special. I just tried to help where I could." This community means everything to me. My patients are my family too. Micah leaned against her shoulder. Mom, you're amazing. Mason wiped away a tear he hoped no one noticed. Across the street, in her living room, Mrs. Whitfield stared at the screen in stunned silence. She knew that face. It was her neighbor, the same woman who waved politely every morning, who worked impossible hours, who raised 2 boys alone. She covered her mouth as the realization hit her like a wave. She had called the police on this woman's children. She had looked at them and assumed the worst, while their mother was out saving lives. On screen, they played an interview clip Serena had recorded earlier in the day. I work hard for my boys, she said, voice trembling slightly. They've been through so much after losing their father. Everything I do is for them. They're my purpose. Mrs. Whitfield's eyes filled with tears. She remembered the twins' frightened faces as the officer questioned them. She remembered how quickly she had judged them. Shame crept up her spine. She had seen 2 boys near her bushes and thought danger. She hadn't thought neighbors. She hadn't thought children. She hadn't thought humans with a story and a mother who risked her life for others. She felt small. Smaller than she had felt in years. But heartbreak was still on its way. Because while Serena beamed at her sons on the couch, proud yet humble, none of them knew that tragedy was waiting just around the corner. The night was about to turn, not with celebration but with a call that would change everything. A call Serena never expected. A call the boys would remember for the rest of their lives. But for now, they sat together, warm and full of love, unaware of the storm approaching their door. The applause from the television was still echoing in the living room when Serena's phone buzzed on the coffee table. She glanced down and saw the hospital's number flashing. Her smile faded a little. That's strange, she murmured. I wasn't supposed to be on call tonight. She answered quickly. Hello. This is Serena. The boys watched her face shift. First confusion, then concern, then something darker, heavier, as if someone had reached into her chest and pulled the breath from her lungs. Yes, I understand, she whispered. I'm on my way. She hung up but didn't move for a moment. Her hands trembled. Her eyes glistened. Mom. Mason asked softly. What happened? She looked at her twins as if memorizing their faces. There's been an accident at the hospital. One of the patients I treated during the wildfire, Mr. Daniels. He had a complication. They need the full team back. They need me. Micah frowned. But you just got honored. Shouldn't someone else go? Serena brushed his cheek. Baby, when people need help, you don't choose convenience. You choose compassion. She stood, grabbed her coat, and kissed each boy's forehead. I'll be back as soon as I can. Lock the doors. Don't answer for anyone but me. The boys nodded. They trusted her with everything. As she stepped outside, Mrs. Whitfield was on her porch, wringing her hands. She walked over slowly. Serena, I saw you on the news. I had no idea. I misjudged. I feel terrible. Serena forced a tired smile. It's okay. Really. It's not, the older woman said, voice shaking. I treated your boys like strangers. Like trouble. They're good kids. I'm so sorry. Serena touched her arm gently. Thank you for saying that. We'll talk later, okay? I have to get to work. Then she hurried to her car and drove off into the night. The boys watched her tail lights disappear, unaware that this would be the last time they saw their mother alive. 2 hours later, the phone rang again. Mason answered because he was the braver one tonight. Hello. A soft voice spoke. Is this the Carter residence? Yes. This is Officer Reynolds with the Charlotte Police Department. Is your mother available? Mason's heart fluttered. She's at the hospital. There was a long pause. Too long. A pause that felt like the sky falling. Son, your mother was in a car accident on the highway. A drunk driver ran a red light. His voice cracked gently. She didn't make it. The words didn't make sense. They didn't even feel real. They felt like a nightmare pretending to be sound. Micah stared at Mason, watching all the color drain from his brother's face. What happened? Mason? What's wrong? Mason could barely breathe. Mom's gone. Micah shook his head violently. No, she's not. She just left. But the world didn't care. Pain didn't wait. Grief didn't knock. They called 911 because that was what the officer told them to do. They waited on the couch, clinging to each other, tears falling fast and hot. Mason tried to be strong, repeating the words their mother always said, "We take care of each other. We take care of each other." But the sentence shattered halfway through. When emergency responders arrived, the twins felt like they were drowning. A female officer knelt in front of them, her voice gentle. "Your mother was a hero. Everyone at the hospital is devastated. She saved so many lives." But that only made it worse. Heroes weren't supposed to die on ordinary nights. Heroes weren't supposed to leave two boys behind. Word spread quickly through Willow Creek. Neighbors stepped out one by one, drawn by the flashing lights. Some whispered. Some cried. But one person walked straight toward the boys' porch, trembling with guilt and heartbreak. Mrs. Whitfield. She knelt next to the twins as they sobbed. "Oh, sweethearts. I am so sorry." Her own tears streamed freely. "Your mother was a light in this world. And I didn't see it. I didn't even give her, or you, a chance." Mason didn't answer. Micah didn't look up. Pain flooded too deeply for words. But she didn't leave. For the first time in years, the woman who kept her distance knelt on someone else's porch, letting herself be fully human, broken, remorseful, shaken by her own reflection. That night, Child Services placed the boys with their aunt, who lived 20 minutes away. The neighborhood stood silent as the twins left their home with backpacks that still smelled like their mother's laundry detergent. Before the car doors closed, Mrs. Whitfield approached with one last burst of courage. "Boys, I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know, you were never the problem. I was. And I'm going to change. I promise you, I'm going to change." The door shut before they could reply. But her words planted a seed. Months passed. Grief carved deep marks into the boys, but their aunt's home gave them stability. Therapy helped them breathe again. They kept their mother's medal on their dresser. Every night Mason whispered, "We're taking care of each other, Mom. Just like you said." Spring arrived with soft winds and blooming magnolias. One afternoon, they returned to Willow Creek for the unveiling of a new memorial at the hospital, dedicated to the wildfire heroes. A plaque with Serena's name rested at the center. Neighbors gathered. Nurses cried. The twins stood tall, holding hands. Then Mrs. Whitfield approached, carrying a small wooden box. Her hair was grayer, her posture humbler, her eyes softer. She had become a volunteer at the hospital where Serena once worked. She brought meals to families, read to patients, sat beside mothers who felt alone. She handed the box to Mason. "This is for you." He opened it slowly. Inside was a hand-carved wooden sign with their mother's favorite words, "Take care of each other." Micah ran his fingers over the letters. "You made this." "I did," she whispered. "Because your mother changed me. She taught me to see people instead of assumptions. I want to honor her by being the kind of neighbor she deserved." For a long moment, neither boy spoke. Then Mason stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her waist. Micah followed. Mrs. Whitfield sobbed into their shoulders. People watched from a distance, witnessing something rare: growth, forgiveness, healing. The twins walked to their mother's plaque and placed the wooden sign at its base. Micah whispered, "We're okay, Mom. We're okay now." And though the wind carried no voice, the twins felt it, gentle, warm, like a hug from the woman who taught them everything about love. Pain had changed them, but love had carried them through it. And the message of their mother's life lived on. Take care of each other. Even when the world doesn't. Even when it's hard. Even when it hurts.